Research in the UK shows workplace gossip costs businesses an average of 65 hours per employee each year in lost productivity. That's over a week and a half gone to rumour spreading instead of real work, real conversations and real connection. Hi, I'm Kathy Doherty, the People Navigator, and if you own a small business or lead a small team and you want to avoid hiring and holding on to horrible people, this channel is for you. Gossip is one of the most underestimated culture killers in small teams. It happens everywhere. We're human, we all love a bit of a gossip, but in small business, the effect is magnified because everybody knows each other and it's a bit like the small village effect. So what can you do to deal with it? First, you're going to want to understand why gossip happens. Often it's linked to a lack of communication. It's the filling of a void, and often that's because of potentially your lack of communication with your team. The flatter your organisation, the greater the opportunity for you to communicate directly, but the more tiers, the more hierarchical your organisation, the greater the opportunity for miscommunication to take place. And those gaps can be filled because of boredom, insecurity, trying to avoid conflict. It could be that a member of your team who maybe doesn't have the same level of confidence to deal with somebody asking challenging questions, that they may give information that either wasn't intended or that they thought the individual wanted to hear to get them off their case, to hopefully have dealt with whatever that query is. For you, it's about recognising what that cause is, and that's where you're going to want to reflect on what your channels of communications are within your business. Spot the early signs. This can be where maybe cliques are forming, where there's whispering going on, where there's maybe a shift or a change in the team's morale, because these can all lead to exclusion, particularly when it comes to cliques, and cliques do exist everywhere. However, they can be incredibly damaging in a small business, particularly where they exclude individuals. Say, for example, you've hired somebody new into the team and you notice quite quickly there's a clique forming and there seems to be a lot of those whispering conversations, the knowing glances. Be very, very careful of that, because that's a pretty good sign that you have hired a predatory, manipulative and toxic employee, a PMT that I talk about. And what can happen is, even just down to one person, that can lead to a decline in the trust that your people have in you, the trust they have between themselves, their confidence and willingness to speak in meetings, to have a conversation with you or with their manager. That division caused by that PMT can have ripple effects that you might not initially be aware of until it's too late. That can come down to one person and their influence on others. There are individuals in your workplace that you may or may not be aware of that are more easily led, more easily influenced, and they are perfect predatory territory for that PMT. I refer to the PMTs as a bit like the fart in the lift. You'll have heard me say that one before, that you're all in the lift together, they fart, they leave, the doors close, and you're left with the lingering smell and having to deal with it afterwards. They've long gone, but the residual is still there. Once you've identified all of this, it is imperative that you then lead by example. And that can be a challenge for you, especially if you've got quite a good chit-chatty relationship with your people. You can find that you're easily drawn into what might come across as gossiping and adding to all of that rumour mill. Because remember, you're not their friend, you're not their comrade, you're the boss. And you need to be able to step away from that to see the bigger picture, to understand the consequences, but also that you are then firm, fair, impartial with everybody in your team. You don't have favourites. So the people that you're more likely to have a chit chat with and have what could be seen as a bit of a gossip with, that will give big indications to the rest of the people in your team whether you're to be trusted or not. And also be mindful of the information that you do share, because what can happen is you unintentionally share something and that is then used Whether you intended it or not, that will then be quoted. And in some circumstances, you're going to need to address it directly. Calmly, but directly. This will come down to your level of confidence and competence and your level of clarity in being able to handle these situations, so prepare before you have them. You might need to have a one-on-one conversation depending on the nature of what we're talking about and the personalities involved. But you'll also want to consider the impact on the team, on the business, and try not to get sucked into the personal content of the gossip. But that depends on what that is and how messy or how difficult the whole situation is. So knowing how to navigate your way through that, how to weave your way through that will be important so that you don't end up accidentally escalating things, that what you say is then used against you, used to justify the gossip, used to stir the gossip even more. Preparation will really matter here, so your tongue doesn't run away. You'll then want to replace the gossip, the rumour mill, with more positive communication channels, whether that be holding short, regular updates so that staff get information directly from you as intended, where you have a hybrid working force or you have a remote working force. This can actually work in your favour, where you can pre-record or you can record things. If you record live Q&As with your people, make sure they're available, that everybody watches them, everybody is aware, so that they're getting the information directly from you. And if there's something you can't respond to, then say that you can't respond to it at that moment, or you'll need to take that away and consider it. Don't be under pressure to give information that you're not yet prepared to give. And I've talked about that in a previous video. But also make sure that you create safe spaces where people can actually talk. They can open up, they can share things, because depending on what that gossip has been, there could be some damage caused. And also ensure that there are ways for concerns to be fed back on a one-to-one basis. And if you have other layers of management between you and your employees, or for you directly with your people, facilitate that in some way. Give them the opportunity for them to air their concerns to you rather than to their colleagues, who might then heighten things rather than calming things down. The Jerry Springer effect. What's your biggest challenge when it comes to workplace gossip? What do you have in place and that you're doing already? Let me know in the comments below. And if you'd like any more assistance when it comes to your people or their behaviours, get in touch. See you next time.